The detonator of silence. Silence is never just the absence of noise. It is a heavy, vibrating force that fills the room when words disappear. You might tell yourself that you're just taking a breather, stepping back to gather your thoughts, or protecting your peace. But in the world of emotional dynamics, silence isn't a neutral territory. It is a detonator. When you withdraw, you aren't just pausing the conversation, you are pulling the pin on a grenade and leaving it in the center of her world. While you sit in what you perceive as a quiet sanctuary, she is left standing in the blast zone. To you, the quiet feels like a shield, but to her, it feels like a weapon. It is the sudden, jarring realization that the bridge of communication has been retracted, leaving her stranded on the other side with no way to reach you. This isn't about some calculated game of manipulation or a strategy to gain the upper hand. It is about the deep biological trigger that your absence pulls in a woman's heart. Human beings, and specifically those wired for deep emotional connection, rely on consistency and presence to feel secure. When that presence is abruptly replaced by a wall of nothingness, it sets off an internal alarm system that screams of danger. Silence speaks with a volume that words can never hope to match, because words can be debated, but silence can only be felt. It is a deafening roar of uncertainty that forces her nervous system into high alert. You might think you're being chill or avoiding a fight, but you are actually creating an environment where her mind has no choice but to go into survival mode. For most men, withdrawal feels like a logical choice, a way to avoid saying something they regret, or a method to reset their own internal battery. But you have to understand that to a woman who is emotionally invested in you, that withdrawal doesn't land like space. It lands like abandonment. Her brain is hardwired to seek safety in connection. And when that connection is severed without warning, the silence feels like a physical weight. She doesn't just hear the fact that you aren't speaking, she feels the sudden, violent disappearance of your energy. It's like the oxygen has been sucked out of the room. One moment, there was a flow of life between you, and the next, there is a void. That void isn't empty. It's filled with every insecurity and fear she has ever tried to keep at bay. When you leave her stranded in that void, you aren't giving her time to think. You are giving her time to panic. In the absence of your voice, her mind begins to fill the silence with the most painful stories imaginable. Every second that passes without a word from you is another brick in the wall she feels rising between you both. She starts to feel unsafe in the relationship because the foundation, the trust that you will be there even when things are hard, is being chipped away. You are effectively telling her that your presence is conditional and that if it is get too loud or too heavy, you will simply disappear. That uncertainty is a form of emotional torment that lingers long after the first word is finally spoken again. By the time you decide to come back from your silence, the woman you left behind may have already started building a fortress of her own just to survive the cold. The internal investigation. The relationship crime scene. The moment you choose silence, you aren't just hitting a pause button. You are initiating a full-scale forensic investigation in her mind. Her brain instantly transforms into a crime scene investigator, combing through every memory and interaction of the last 48 hours with a magnifying glass. Because you've provided no explanation, she has to find one herself. But here is the brutal reality. Instead of looking at your behavior and seeing your withdrawal as a reflection of your own communication issues, her first instinct is to turn the lens on herself. She becomes a detective, searching for her own crimes. She replays every conversation, every joke, and every glance, looking for the exact moment she might have ruined things. She begins to ask the most damaging questions a person can ask. Was I too much? Did I speak too loudly? Did I ask for too much? Or, even worse, am I simply not enough to make him stay present? This psychological spiral is relentless and exhausting. It doesn't matter how independent, successful, or emotionally grounded she is in her professional or social life, love has a way of stripping away those layers of armor. It makes even the strongest person hypersensitive to shifts in frequency. When the radio signal of your affection suddenly goes dead, she doesn't just sit in the quiet. She tries to fix the transmitter by tearing herself apart. By leaving the page of your relationship blank, you are forcing her to become the author of a tragedy. Without your input, she has no choice but to fill that empty space with heartbreak ink. She starts connecting your current silence to her oldest wounds, recalling past betrayals and every time someone else let her down. You might think you're just taking a break, but she is busy writing a script where she is the problem and you are the one who finally realized it. The shift to self preservation, the silence of the wounded. Eventually, the investigation ends because the pain becomes too much to bear. And that is when the most dangerous shift happens. She goes quiet too. But you need to understand that her silence is nothing like yours. Yours might be about cooling off, but hers is a desperate act of self preservation. Do not mistake her lack of noise for a return to calm or an acceptance of the situation. Her silence is heavy. It is overflowing with 1,000 unsent texts, deleted paragraphs, and half formed thoughts that she no longer feels safe expressing. Every time she reached out during your quiet period and felt the cold wall of your absence, she registered a hit to her emotional security. She has learned through the most painful lesson possible that her vulnerability is no longer a priority to you. She has realized that when she opens her heart, you might just walk away. So she starts building a fortress to keep what's left of her heart safe. This is the stage where she begins to protect herself with the very weapon that wounded her: silence. She isn't playing a game and she isn't trying to get back at you. She is simply tired. She is tired of the uncertainty, tired of the guessing games, and tired of feeling like a burden for having feelings. Even as she begins to pull away, there is usually a small, flickering part of her that is still hoping you will prove her wrong. She'll check her phone one last time, hoping for a message that says, "I'm sorry, I'm still here," or anything that offers a shred of clarity. But every minute that you choose to remain distant, you are effectively blowing out that candle. You are confirming her worst fears, that she is alone in this. Eventually, she stops hoping. She doesn't stop because she fell out of love overnight. She stops because living in the limbo of maybe is a torment she can no longer afford to pay for with her mental health. She chooses to go numb because feeling nothing is better than feeling the agony of waiting for a man who won't speak. The final edit: shrinking to survive. Before a woman finally decides to walk away, she goes through a heartbreaking process called the final edit. This is the stage where she tries to fundamentally change who she is just to fit into the shrinking, quiet space you've left for her. She starts to believe the lie that her personality is too loud, her needs are too heavy, and her love is too demanding. To keep you from retreating further into your silence, she begins to perform a series of internal cuts. She edits her text messages, deleting the emojis and the "I miss you" notes, replacing them with short, safe responses that won't trigger your withdrawal. She holds back her natural affection and stops sharing the small details of her day because she has started to view her own life as an inconvenience to you. She stops asking why and stops seeking clarity, not because she found peace, but because she's terrified that one more question will be the breaking point that sends you away forever. This is the most tragic part of the entire dynamic. She is losing pieces of her soul while trying to hold on to someone who has already let go. By trying to be less so that you might stay, she is slowly erasing the very qualities that made her vibrant and unique. She notices every delayed reply, every cold one word answer, and every shift in the warmth of your voice. You might think you're being subtle, but your silence is actually a fluent language that she understands perfectly. It tells her that she isn't a priority, that her feelings are a burden, and that you are no longer invested in the connection. This constant state of hypervigilance wears her down until she can no longer recognize herself. She spends her energy trying to bridge a gap that you are actively widening, only to realize that no matter how much she shrinks, the space between you remains just as cold. It's the moment she confirms that her intuition wasn't crazy or insecure. It was a warning light that she finally has the courage to see. Reclaiming peace, the power of the final exit. If you used silence as a strategic tool to make her chase you or as a weapon to punish her for a mistake, you have fundamentally misunderstood the caliber of the woman you're dealing with. A high value woman has a limit to how much confusion she will tolerate in exchange for love. She won't beg for your attention, she won't blow up your phone with desperate pleas, and she certainly won't chase a man who is running in the opposite direction. Instead, she will do something much more powerful. She will sit with the pain. She will go into her own quiet space, not to play a game, but to process the grief of losing the person she thought you were. She will allow the reality of your absence to sink in until she can rebuild her life and her peace around the hole you left behind. She realizes that your silence wasn't a test for her to pass. It was a loud, clear message that you are not a safe place for her heart. There won't be a big dramatic showdown or a cinematic exit where she tells you off. One day, you will simply wake up and realize that the light has gone out. You'll notice that she stopped showing up, stopped checking in, and stopped caring about where you are or what you're doing. She didn't leave because she stopped loving you. She left because she finally realized she was the only one doing the loving. She heard every unspoken word your silence had to say, and she finally decided to start listening to her own voice instead. By the time you decide your point has been made and try to return, you'll find that the door has been locked from the inside. When a woman of substance reaches this level of indifference, she hasn't lost the relationship. She has won her life back. She has chosen the certainty of her own peace over the constant, draining confusion of your absence.